everyone. This is Henny Espinosa with Just Wish Foundation. Today, we are joined by Jelly Robinson, a hairstylist from Houston, with a mission to help children in the autism spectrum with her mobile salon, Peace and Love Studios. Thanks for joining us on Just Wish Foundation, Jelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Henny.
Jelly, both of your parents are hairstylists, right? What was it like growing up in the salon and, watching them do hair?
So my father is now deceased, but my mother is still an active hairstylist. And honestly, I don't remember my first memory there. I was just kind of born into the shop. So that was normalcy for me, especially on the weekends or after school. And I was just always intrigued, like wanting to be in the mix, wanting a mannequin, wanting to play with hair. I mean, from a very, very young age. So that is probably my earliest memory, is like walking up to my godmom's station and asking her, because I was snaggletooth. She tells all the time I didn't have my two front teeth. So I was like, can I have some mousse? I would ask her if I could borrow her mousse, and I'd put it in the mannequin's head and mimic roller sets and all the things. So yeah, it started out pretty early, and that was probably one of my coolest memories that contributed to where I am today.
So eventually you enrolled in hair school. You wanted to become a hairstylist. But you were one of the few hairstylists who offered to cut children's hair. Now, Why is it much more challenging to cut children's hair, and why did you take on the challenge?
Well, I personally think it's like a common misconception, because if you think of like when you're like, say when you go get your hair done and you're talking to your hairstylist and y'all talking and joking and you may move or whatever the case might be, I think that stylists just take it on easier if it's coming from an adult that they feel is the paying person, opposed to the burden of it being a child and them having to deal with it moving left and right. So I don't think that really anybody sits like a perfect statue from beginning to end for their hair care services. But I think that it was just a mind frame thing for everybody around me, that it was going to be so much harder to cater to the children. If we're just talking about children in general, I don't think that it's necessarily that much harder. It's still kind of the same level of movement. It's just not a lot of people are willing to do it for kids.
Yeah. And you also have that, I guess, natural gift to, make children feel at ease and comfortable. Have you always been good with kids?
Always.
Has it always been easy for you to relate with kids?
Always. I am a kid. I'm a 31-year-old kid.
That's great. I think we should always be childlike, because I think that's the best way to connect with children. So children tend to really feel comfortable around you, is what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, always. And people ask me, do you have children, or how many siblings do you have? And I'm like, I don't have any children. I don't have any siblings. I'm an only child.
Wow.
So it might have a little bit to do with like my yearning for wanting to be around kids so much while it was just myself. Like I always wanted somebody to play with. So it's like this infinite pool of play and imagination every day I go to work.
Great. That's great. So when you were working in a children's salon, part of your training was to take a free 1-hour training through Autism Speaks, right?
Yes.
So as we know, Autism Speaks is a nonprofit dedicated to helping people with autism. Now, what was that experience like for you?
So initially I thought that it was great because I didn't know anything about autism and I didn't know anything about the organization. And I'm just like a serial learner. So like anytime I can take on some sort of webinar or something and it only takes me 1 hour to do, I'm good.
Yeah.
But after I finished it, it was like I received a little button and it told me that I was certified to service kids that had autism, and I felt unequipped. And so that was where I went down the rabbit hole of researching, like, what is autism and why is this affecting them in such a negative way when it comes to the hair care and the grooming portion of it. So, I mean, even though it was a 1-hour module and I felt like it was so much that was left to be desired, if I didn't have that 1-hour module, I probably would have never expanded on the topic because I would have never been introduced to it. So that 1-hour module might have been one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah. That catapulted everything, that started that whole desire in you to really.
Right. We can call it a movement. We can call it that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So at what point did you think, I want to do more? I want to start the mobile salon Peace and Love Studios.
So I was working for a traditional salon And I mean, I tell this story so many times, but there were so many experiences that drove me to do it. But once I realized that through word of mouth, these parents were so desperate. Like, to me, the word desperation is such a strong word. When you are desperate to find a way to make bath time easier, when you are desperate to try to make getting your child out of the house easier, and you're literally coming to me and telling me that nobody is willing to do this because it's too challenging, I was like, okay, got you. I'll come to you on my off days. I was going after hours, all the things. And so when COVID hit and we all just had time to sit down, I was able to really be so intentional about constructing the way that I wanted to visit these families, because I was already traveling to them by car.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I could open a salon and have the families come to me, but it almost seemed like I was being a part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I'm going to invite you to come into a place that terrifies you, instead of me finding a way to come to you and accommodate you for a change all the way across the board.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I might as well just get a truck or something and convert it out, so that if they need me at school, they need me at therapy, they need me at home, I'm just pull down. And then in the event that they don't feel comfortable enough to come into the salon, I can go into where they are. Yeah. And so that's kind of where that idea came up.
And it's not just the being comfortable. I think it's the accessibility. I think like for a lot of parents that are already overwhelmed with having a kid in the autism spectrum, I'm sure they truly appreciate that, Jelly, that you're available to go to them. You're accessible. It saves them time. It saves them effort. And of course, like, when the kid is finally there, how do you make sure that they're comfortable enough? Like, what do you do extra? I guess it's already hard as it is with challenging as it is with giving some children haircuts, right? But when it comes to children in the autism spectrum, is there something special that you do to make them feel at ease so they can sit through the haircut?
So it's always case by case. But the number one thing that is always consistent is going to be allowing my client time to process. So say I'll give you two scenarios very quickly. So say that it's a client that has never met me before. Mm-hmm. The logic is there. They're like, I don't know this person, so consider me a stranger. You're coming into my home or to a place that is private to me that I already feel comfortable in. And you're coming toward my head with something that I cannot play with, which is like a pair of scissors or a piece of small machinery. That is strong logic in saying that I feel like I need to protect myself because I don't know this person and they're coming at me with things that I'm not allowed to play with. Mm. So me allowing them to process that, hey, let me introduce these tools to you in a way that it is palatable and digestible for you to understand that I'm your friend and I'm here to help. And this is something that you can play with as long as you're with me, and we'll do it together. Mm. Or even with an existing client, you still need time for that processing because they may have had a negative previous experience that their mind goes straight back to that when they see a pair of shears or they see a clipper or whatever. They go back to their worst experience. So sometimes you still have to bring down an existing client from something that you didn't even cause. So that processing time is something that I think is pretty consistent across the board. Mm-hmm. That plays a major role in my rapport and just like their likeness to me is just like, hey, we don't have to just jump into anything. You can kind of boss me around and let me know what to do and where to go and how to go there. And then we'll build off of that until I can incorporate things that I feel will be most helpful to you in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess the more familiar the kid is to you, then it becomes easier, right?
It does.
Great. So Jelly, tell us what kind of fulfillment you get from knowing that you're making a difference. I'm sure there's this void that you have filled, right? Because I can imagine like parents with kids in the autism spectrum having to navigate all the services that are available, and that we don't think about, oh yeah, what about as simple as getting a haircut, right? You fill that void. You feel that need. How do you feel when you hear feedback from parents, when you see the joy in the kids' faces? Like, what kind of fulfillment do you get from that?
Most people wouldn't think that my job is so emotional, and I don't even mean to exaggerate when I say that my job is the most emotional thing that I've ever been a part of. So if I could scale my level of fulfillment, it's a spectrum. You know, like something as big as a kid giving me a hug for the first time. Where it's like my kid interacting with you through haircuts and you making him feel comfortable with new people, he's now able to interact with other new people. That's priceless. Yeah. Or my son or my kids seeing tools that are being used that he's not unable to play with, but now since he's seen you, he's having an easier time at the dentist and at the doctor's office. So it's such a wide spectrum of the types of voids that I'm able to feel. And like every story makes me overly emotional and overly grateful that I was the person to be selected for that portion of their journey. Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't matter how big or small, it's like, it never stops. Yeah. I'm continuously fulfilled by what I decided to do with my one and only life.
That's great. And I think the more people hear about your story, people in the community, have they responded to help, to support?
So much support, so much love. And I mean, not even just nationally, like the love comes from all over the world at this point, with people sharing their stories, people sharing what could potentially be their last, or, you know, just all the way across the board, so much support. And I just cannot thank everybody enough for just believing in the cause and seeing that it's a true need, and that, you know, in 20 years, who knows what grooming will look like for individuals that have challenges, because we all deserve to feel beautiful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Are other communities, have they reached out and said, I want to replicate this in my own area?
Yes, there are very few companies right now that are up and running. I'm connected with about 14, 15 different companies that I would bet my bottom dollar on to send a client to if they were in their area. Obviously, I haven't been there to observe these services, so maybe a 1 or 2 minute clip on YouTube or Instagram may be all I have to go off of it. But the fact that their willingness is there and we've had that connectiveness for me to consider them to be a resource. Such as small businesses have reached out, but in the end, we definitely want to reach out to those bigger companies and let them know, hey, let's get your whole staff trained up. And we're not asking everybody that's a part of your company to be a child hair care specialist or to want to deal with something that they feel they don't have the tools to navigate. But if they at least have that common knowledge and they know how to respectfully refer a kid to someone's chair, like the kids were referred to my chair, then every salon will have some sort of administrator that will have some sort of beacon of hope where they can at least get them through the service or respectfully refer them to a place that can service them properly.
Yeah. Where do you hope to take your mobile salon? What are your plans, or even beyond that? Like what do you hope to achieve, Jelly, with the community support, with seeing how big of an impact you've had in the community? What else do you want to do?
Such a loaded question, Hannah. But if I could sum it up, obviously I want to be able to train as many people as I can to be better than who I am. If what I can provide for their first sighting of what a curriculum is or what a learning experience is, I don't want them to feel like they left the table wanting to go down a rabbit hole without resources. So that would be my first step, is being able to put a curriculum in front of someone, being able to teach and train and mold for these people to start out their child hair care career journey with everything I know right now. If I start them with that and then they practice with that material, who knows? They'll be teaching me things. Like, you know, that would be the main goal. But the biggest goal would be that we can put into our state boards some sort of mandatory chapter or book, something within the 13 weeks of theory, so that no matter what, if you're licensed, regardless, you already have a sense of what this means, and that it could come into the salon of a workplace that you may choose to spend your time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the quickest way for me to nip it in the bud, because if you got a license, then you've at least read this chapter, you've had to take a test on it, and and if you want to expound on that, then you can. That for me, like if I never lived another day and we got everything into the boards, at least within the nation that I live in, then I feel like I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, that's leaving a legacy behind. More than making an impact now, it's leaving a legacy behind. And for us at Just Wish Foundation, when we heard about your story, Jelly, we were like, wow, this is a perfect example of how somebody turned a career, a passion, into an opportunity to really make a difference in the community. And we're just so inspired by it. It's so easy to see why kids are so drawn to you, because you have this like inner joy in you, and I feel like it's infectious. It makes you inspired to make a difference in your own way as well. I hope others, when they hear about your story, they would want to make a difference in the lives of others, especially those that need it most. Our children in the autism spectrum certainly need all the resources and support we can give. And for that, we truly applaud you. And what we can do in our own small way is to give you a monetary donation so you could use it to further expand whatever dreams and goals you have. And Mr. Jack Woo is just, and myself, we're really here to support you as you take even bigger steps in leaving lasting legacies in your community. So we salute you, Jelly. Thank you so much, and keep doing what you do.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with me, Hannah. You've been an absolute pleasure.
Of course. Thanks so much, Jelly. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.